Hello, hello, hello. Welcome aboard. Welcome to our stream this week. I know we've been gone for the past few weeks. Good to finally be back here. Honestly, there's been a lot that's been happening these past couple weeks since we've been gone. Really happy to finally come back and talk about all these comic books, especially in the space of X-Men. I feel like there's still a lot of really interesting recent developments here. It actually seems like a lot of people this week have been really discussing and getting into X-Men Blue Origins. And for anybody not in the know, that series is really exploring some of the origins in relation to Nightcrawler and Mystique. It's been super interesting to check out that book and to see how all this continuity has been subverted and how Marvel is allowing for some of these Chris Claremont ideas to finally come through. I feel like we've been really, really excited for that book for quite a long time too, as well as Uncanny Spider-Man. So getting those series really just right out the gate with such high quality is so exciting. Elsewhere up on the channel, we also talked about the first stages of the gang war over an Amazing Spider-Man. I think that was also just a fantastic debut issue that did a really good job striking a camaraderie amidst all of the different crime lords over in the Marvel Universe. We also touched on the insane sci fi backdrop happening over in the most recent issue of The Flash. I absolutely am loving The Flash right now. I think that book is just incredibly ambitious and takes on all these wild and just absurd plot threads that are so interesting and imaginative here. I think the way that Wally was interacting with characters like Michael Holt, Mr. Terrific, was so engaging across that series, as well as Max Mercury. I think Cy Spurrier has just been outdoing himself with all these absolutely wild plot ideas, all these just strange villains that are seemingly attacking Wally from all these different locations here. Honestly, I wish I saw a little bit more fan response over to the main Flash series coming in from DC. I think that book has just been incredibly strong month after month after month. I know we're only about 3 issues deep into this brand new Dawn of DC Flash run over with Cy Spurrier and Mike Deodato. But every single time I pick up an issue and see somebody like the Folded Man, the Uncoiled, the Stillness, I'm just so interested in checking out what else this comic book has in store here. Elsewhere, we also had the chance to cover Titans Beast World in actually quite a lot of depth here. Titans Beast World, the brand new DC Comics event. And for me, this is really important. This is really exciting because I've loved the main DC Titans book over from Tom Taylor and Nicholas Scott. I was really interested to see what the creative team would deliver for like a full-on Titans-based event. And I really don't think Titans Beast World disappointed at all. One of the things I've really tried to say in response to this most recent run over on the Titans is that I love how this book is really fleshing out these Titans characters as individual people. It feels like Tom Taylor has really been diving into the individual plot threads for people like Wally West. We've even gotten Linda within an appearance over in the issue. I think Nightwing has really come into his own as a leader over for the team. And frankly, it's just great to see DC shake up their continuity a little bit and put the Titans over at the foreground here. Afro SF, greetings, Arakko Braddock. Hope you have finally recovered from your illness. Afro SF, really great to have you on the stream here. And honestly, it was a mixture of different social obligations, just a little bit of an illness, but we are back on the stream here. We have a ton of content to go ahead and catch up on over from the past few weeks. I'm actually really excited to go ahead and talk about today's news in particular because we're going to be diving into Miss Marvel. Frankly, I think Miss Marvel is so interesting now that she's an X-Men over in the Marvel Universe. To me, it feels like Miss Marvel has more plot threads right now than she ever has before. And one of the things that I'm also just really loving about this current run over on Miss Marvel is, to me, it feels like there's a little bit more progression in terms of her character. So over in the most recent Hellfire Gala, we really saw Kamala Khan become a part of the X-Men. The X-Men were able to resurrect her after her surprise death over in the pages of The Amazing Spider-Man. And then we've been treated to the Miss Marvel the New Mutant series, where we've gotten to see Kamala Khan operate alongside the underground X-Men hidden over at the end of the Hellfire Gala. Afro SF, now that City Boy has ended, I am not currently reading any DC books. What do you recommend? Afro SF, I want to encourage you to jump on that Titans book. I think it's really important over to the main DC universe. It's got great characterization. It's like the flagship DC Comics title right now. Also, once again, as we said up top, towards the entrance of the stream here, I'm also really passionate about the current Flash run. I think it's amazing. I think it's like a mind-bending, just insane and wild ride. You should definitely check that out. There's so many good books at DC right now. I feel like we're in a really special place with DC and Marvel. I know I say this like every single month, but I actually believe it right now. When a comic book publisher has an event that I'm actually interested in, it makes me even more excited to like read the rest of the books. And I think so far, Beast World has gotten off over on the right foot here. Let's go ahead and shoot back over to Miss Marvel. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the 4th issue. I've reviewed every issue so far of Miss Marvel, The New Mutant, from Iman Vellani, Saber Perzada, Carlos Gomez, and just the really wonderful creative team here. I really thought the 4th issue was just absolutely tremendous, actually. We got to see Kamala go up against these Stark Sentinels, and she's actually been undercover at this Orcus-funded tech program over at Empire State University. For anybody not in the know, Orcus is the group that attacked Kamala Khan, or not Kamala Khan, but the X-Men over at the Hellfire Gala. So now Kamala is teaming up alongside the X-Men to go ahead and go undercover at this Empire State University program. And really throughout Miss Marvel, The New Mutant, we've tried and seen Kamala operate within all this like subterfuge. And what's very interesting here is that in the background of this series, we've had these long-standing X-Men villains that have shown up time and time again in several different comic books, but have resurfaced over from Miss Marvel, The New Mutant. These two individuals are Dr. Gaiha as well as Omega Sentinel. And throughout the pages of Miss Marvel, The New Mutant issue 4, we actually learn that Dr. Saha was going a little bit easy over on Miss Marvel. I think it's going to be really fascinating here to see if Miss Marvel is going to be able to withstand an even bigger attack. Also, it looks like Miss Marvel's first mission was largely regarded over as a success here within some of these pages. It looks like throughout Miss Marvel, The New Mutant, she was also able to get a little bit closer to the character of Bruno. I thought it was really interesting to watch Kamala take on a Stark Sentinel all by herself, and she was also teamed up with some of the characters over from Empire State University too. But she was actually able to best the Stark Sentinel and successfully complete the mission here. And this is all leading to the next evolution of Miss Marvel Kamala Khan over as a mutant. Let's go ahead and explore what's next for Kamala in Miss Marvel, The Mutant Menace. So this is almost a sequel series over to Kamala's first adventures as a mutant here. Let's go ahead and explore what Kamala has in store. Kamala Khan is one of Mutantkind's greatest champions in Miss Marvel Mutant Menace. Following their acclaimed work in Miss Marvel The New Mutant, Iman Vellani and Saber Perzada continue Miss Marvel's X-Men journey in an all-new comic book series this March. So it seems like this is also going to really signal the second half of Fall of X over in the Marvel Universe here. Miss Marvel, The New Mutant 4 hit stands today, delivering the conclusion to Kamala Khan's first mission as a member of the X-Men. After taking down a Stark Sentinel and disrupting an Orcus operation single-handedly, it's safe to say that Miss Marvel has proven herself beyond a shadow of a doubt to the mutant cause. And this pivotal chapter for one of Marvel Comics' brightest stars is far from over. This March, Marvel Studios' own Miss Marvel, Iman Vellani, and Saber Perzada return to chronicle Miss Marvel's next steps into exploring her mutant identity in Miss Marvel Mutant Menace. The 4-issue limited series will continue to cement Miss Marvel's role in the X-Men mythos, while staying true to the character's roots and celebrating what makes her such a standout hero in the Marvel Universe. One thing I've loved about the main Kamala Khan series that just went ahead and wrapped up is how she's been able to start developing relationships with all these disparate X-Men characters. I particularly love the way that Kamala has been able to interact with Shadowcat, Kitty Pryde. It feels like she's a little bit more apprehensive towards Kamala, as opposed to characters like Rasputin 4, who just seem to have a natural affinity towards Kamala within these pages. Also, like, finally showing Kamala get the adoration of Sync and Talon of the Underground X-Men, I think also marked a key point across her evolution. And we've talked a lot about how Miss Marvel, the New Mutant, was a really important next step over for Kamala. I think maybe the one thing we need to talk about a little bit more in depth before we move on to any other story here is actually Marvel's publishing strategy for some of these comics. As you can see here, Miss Marvel, this sequel series, Miss Marvel Mutant Menace, is actually a 4-issue miniseries. So it looks like Marvel is just trying to publish Kamala Khan as an X-Men within 4 issues at a time, and then just continually follow it up with more and more miniseries. I was really thinking about this because typically what we would see is a publisher just release an ongoing series for a current character. But instead, Marvel is choosing to just break these comic books up in blocks. I'm wondering if it's going to serve the character or if there's just going to be a natural sense of readers dropping off as we get deeper and deeper into the run here. But just thought it was really interesting to see how Marvel is moving forward on Kamala as opposed to some of the other characters. Her upcoming adventure will take her back to Jersey City, where she'll have to confront another Fall of X related threat, while dealing with the fallout of being outed as a mutant. Balancing both will bring Miss Marvel into contact with more X-Men, as well as iconic X-Men villains, and reunite her with key supporting players of her own, including a fan favorite X. This time around, co-writers Vellani and Pirzana will be joined by Scott Godlewski, who made his Marvel debut in the recent Alpha Flight series, while Miss Marvel, the New Mutant artist Carlos Gomez, provides the series covers. Yeah, I think Aman Vellani and Sauber Pirzana did a fantastic job fleshing out Kamala over in the first miniseries. There is a lot of dialogue across this issue, but I think a lot of it over in the previous series has so much characterization for Kamala, and I was really happy, especially with where they left off over in that last issue. It feels like there's going to be a bigger premise and a bigger story at hand over for the sequel series. Scott Godlewski, really strong artist. I think Alpha Flight has featured some really strong interiors here, and I'm hoping that the sequel Miss Marvel Mutant Menace comic book will also have some of those similar elements. Hated and feared, Miss Marvel has officially come out to the world as a mutant and a member of the X-Men, and she's right about to learn just how hard things can get for mutant kind. Kamala Khan is used to being a hometown hero. There's no way her community would turn her back on her just because she's a mutant, right? JFW, thank you so much for joining our stream today. We are currently exploring Miss Marvel as an X-Men in her current iteration here. It's been fascinating to sort of watch her evolution. It's been an absolute joy and privilege to co-write Miss Marvel with Aman Vellani, who has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that she is the voice of Miss Marvel on the page just as much as she is on the screen. We are excited to report that Kamala's journey will continue on in Miss Marvel Mutant Menace. It will be Kamala's most dangerous ride yet. So one thing about Miss Marvel, the New Mutant, is I didn't think that there were very many direct threats with characters like Omega Sentinel or Dr. Gaiha. I feel like there is so much more room for Kamala to have these more direct threats with all these disparate characters. The one conversation that she had over with the Mega Sentinel in issue 4 was just fantastic. It was super ominous. And also watching Dr. Gaiha kind of scheme up her next plan over in the background too was a ton of fun here. And frankly, I also think that Kamala's inclusion across these X-Men books also gives some of these like ancillary X-Men characters a little bit more to do here. So it's almost like no matter where you look, Kamala Khan is a net positive over for the mutants and what they're experiencing as well. And let's see here. So Miss Marvel, the New Mutant Menace, right off the bat, I was trying to say Miss Marvel, the New Mutant. It's sort of ingrained in my head. But this is the sequel series, Miss Marvel Mutant Menace. Once again here, 4-issue miniseries and this one is on sale March 6th. Okay, I want to continue actually exploring the Marvel Universe, especially as it relates to Fall of X. But we're actually going to switch gears just a little bit and talk about how the mutants are planning on bringing down some of those Stark Sentinels that are popping up all across New York and are causing just so much turmoil over for all these X-Men characters. Let's go ahead and preview this upcoming issue of Iron Man. This is Invincible Iron Man issue 13. This comic book has been so much fun lately. Really, I think ever since Fall of X began and we got to see the marriage between Tony Stark and Hazel Kendall. There's been so much interesting like undercover hijinks for the X-Men. They've really tried to really kind of like find more information about Orcus and have found all these really interesting ways to strike really, really strong blows, whether it be against Fei Long or some of these other characters. Iron Man himself has also been exploring this really interesting Mysterium element that he may make his new armor out of. Plus, over in the background of this series, as we just mentioned up top here, Tony Stark was recently talking about Ironheart, and together they were trying to make a plan that can get rid of these Stark Sentinels once and for all. Without further ado here, let's check out how Emma and Tony are going about getting rid of these Stark Sentinels over in Invincible Iron Man issue 13. Iron Man and Emma Frost go intergalactic. Iron Man has become the X-Men's worst nightmare. Without a company, without his armory, how can Tony Stark make things right? The answers might lie beyond Earth. Really like the credits page, the introduction sequence over for this issue, and I want to read this last paragraph here to get you introduced into some of the continuity with the new Iron Man issue. This one has a really epic subtitle called The Mysterium Marauders. Tony has a plan to ensure the Resistance's victory, but it comes with a high cost. Ironheart has agreed to oversee construction of an armada that can stand against Fei Long's Sentinels, but that kind of mass production requires raw materials, not to mention funds. Luckily, Emma has an answer to both problems. JFW says, absolutely enjoying the X-Men team of writers. So happy to hear about that. Over across the internet, I keep reading about people, dragging creators like Cy Spurrier, like Kieran Gillen, and I'm like, no, these people are delivering like some of the best X-Men, comics that I've read in like years and years and years. Just a fantastic time to be reading and checking out these books. Also, one thing I want to mention before we even check out the interiors for Invincible Iron Man 13 is that Juan Frigeri is so good at facial expressions. Very excited to check out some of the artwork here. As you can see from this opening page, we have a really epic layout here. All these like disparate and interestingly designed panels give way to so much, just interesting interactions between these characters. I thought it was very interesting, too, how Emma and Tony are kind of cooking up their next scheme over to go undercover here. They're actually using these two Skrull agents to take their shapes over in the Hellfire Club while they go ahead and pursue their own mysterious activities over on the side. Once again, getting to see like Juan Frigeri's art over in the context of these Skrull characters is very arresting. I'm also just really loving how Frigeri is able to lay these pages out and depict all this negative space across this issue as well. We can see both Tony and Emma going up to space, and over in the meantime, they meet up with the character of Star Fox, introducing yet another like science fiction-based element over in the Marvel Universe. And plus, we have these two Skrull characters heading over to the Hellfire Club over in the background. That was just a brief look over at Invincible Iron Man issue 13. I'm very excited to see if both Tony and Emma are able to work with Ironheart, maybe to find some extra Mysterium to go ahead and stop some of those Stark Sentinels with their mass-produced X-Men robots of their very own here. All right, well, that was our very brief coverage over of Iron Man, Invincible Iron Man issue 13. I think it is so exciting to see all the different ways that Fall of X kind of interlinks with each other, as over with that Miss Marvel series, we really saw Kamala go up against a Stark Sentinel In the Iron Man comic, we really see Tony and Emma try and find a plan to stop the Stark Sentinels. But we're also going to continue our exploration of Fall of X by talking about X-Men issue 29. This is yet another comic book featuring Miss Marvel fighting alongside some of the underground X-Men to battle some of Doctor Doom's mutants. Let's go ahead and check this one out here. X-Men 29, big thank you to Adventures in Poor Taste for posting this preview. Enter Doom's X-Men. With the X-Men at their lowest point, yet another group has moved to claim their title. This one, a band of patriotic Latverian mutants loyal only to the great and terrible Doctor Doom. Beloved and celebrated by the nation they are bound to protect, this one squad of X-Men for whom the Fall of X has given way to glorious summer. Once again, we have a fantastic creative team on the main X-Men series. I've been loving all of the different ways that Gerry Duggan, as a writer, has subverted all these different contexts and is continually given me just these interesting left turns where I would expect him to go right. The X-Men were really featuring the character of Firestar going undercover over at Orchis, and in this issue, Gerry Duggan and Joshua Cassara are switching gears to introduce Doom's X-Men. This has also been previewed in a couple previous issues of X-Men as well, so it doesn't feel like this is something that's coming out of the blue or coming completely out of left field here. I think some of these interior pages introducing the series are just breathtaking, as we get to see an earlier scene here where Doctor Doom himself is contacting Professor Xavier through the Cerebro helmet. Once again, I think Joshua Cassara is also just an incredible artist at laying out some of these pages. The way he chooses to frame these sequences and feature these really close face-ups are incredibly arresting. Also, the way that Doctor Doom is speaking over to Professor X in this flashback sequence carries so much intrigue. I'm going to read here what Doom has to say over to Professor X. I've been waiting for you to announce yourself. You're not powerful enough to speak to the world at once, so I'm positing that you're using Cerebro. And frankly, you're not that confident. So I'm going to make another supposition that you're standing beside your old friend Eric. Let's see. And then over in response, Doom says, I am not nothing, I am Doom. I think the way that Joshua Cassara is able to capture Doom in this really strange outfit with what looks like his version over of Cerebro, very arresting too. I think once again we have got a great page design here. I'm going to check out the rest of Doctor Doom's dialogue, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap up our preview of X-Men 29. Doom. The hubris, I've been expecting this call. Did you think your pharmaceutical companies would escape my eyes? The shell corporations, the patents. You say you are mutants, but you have human faults, pride, greed. If you address the world, Charles, then you address Doom. Really love the final page introducing some of these Latverian mutants that the X-Men are going to come into contact with. Also, the way that Gerry Duggan has arranged this script with the flashback after getting so many teases towards Doom's mutants is so fascinating here. I really think we're in store for a really excellent comic book when X-Men 29 Yes, I really think we're in store for an incredibly epic comic book when X-Men 29 hits stores over on December 6th here. We're also going to get to see the evolution of Miss Marvel in a different context alongside some of these X-Men characters as well here. I think there's so much to be excited about in terms of Fall of X, and really happy to see you taking the journey alongside me here. So that, for the time being, is going to be the end of our X-Men coverage. Hope you enjoyed walking through all those individual pieces. And for now, let's go ahead and explore what Marvel has ready over for these Spider-Man comics. Give me just one moment here. Over in the pages of Marvel's Amazing Spider-Man series, Peter Parker is about to fight a gang war against some of the most vicious crime lords over in New York City. We're starting to see some of the pieces of this massive crossover come together here. So many of the plot threads for this gang war story happened in a previous issue of The Amazing Spider Man, where Janice Lincoln's father, Tombstone, was shot in the middle of Janice's wedding. This has really created like a power gap in terms of Marvel's crime lords, and right now they're all trying to fill the gap and do battle over against Peter Parker and some of these other characters. Without further ado, let's go ahead and check out the first official issue of Spider Man's Gang War over in Chapter 39. Meet Spider Man's super team that will help him put an end to gang war. Big thank you to Newsarama and George Marston for posting this preview and giving a little bit more context as opposed to just posting those preview pages. I wish some of these other outlets would take suit as well. Marvel's big gang war crossover is officially here. And after getting off to an explosive start, Spider Man is bringing a team of vigilante heroes from across New York City to help quell the fighting between the city's gangs. In December 6th, Amazing Spider Man 39 from writer Zeb Wells and penciler John Romita Jr. I just want to say before we get any further that this team of gang war characters operating alongside Peter I think is really fantastic. We have She-Hulk, whose presence I think has really been bolstered thanks to her new series. Miles Morales is also playing a key role in this crossover. It seems like from the marketing material, he's going to be battling the Hobgoblin. Really fantastic to see Elektra still operating as Daredevil over in the Marvel Universe. At first, I thought that was kind of more of a gimmick, but I remember writer Chip Zdarsky saying that that status quo was going to stick over at Marvel for a long time. And I think even in the middle of this next run, some of those pieces are still in place. Also, Spider-Woman. I just want to say, I did have the chance to check out Spider-Woman's very recent series. It was fantastic. I would encourage everybody to go ahead and check it out. Yeah, I just thought that Steve Folk's series really had a great perspective over for Jessica. And I'm just happy to see her getting like a bigger role over in terms of the Marvel Universe again. I think these characters are really, really interesting. I'm excited to see them fight back alongside these other crime lords. Plus, I think it's cool that Spider-Woman has like direct animosity against the character of like Diamondback specifically. Exit Nerd, one comic that surprised me was Amazon's Attack 2. Much better than I thought. I love Amazon's Attack. To be just completely honest, have not checked out the second issue, but the first one was amazing. And also, I think one of the really cool things about that book too is all those like infographics that it has over on like the credits page and the way that it's able to weave like the Wonder Woman continuity together. I think Amazon's Attack is fantastic. Wish I had more time to cover like every single book over from DC. All right, let's see where we left off here. We've got an early preview of some pages from the issue featuring Spidey assembling his team of She-Hulk, Miles Morales, Spider-Woman, Elektra as Daredevil. Though Mayor Luke Cage has pledged to keep the police and anti-superhero patrols off of Spidey and his pals' backs, there's still the matter of some laws keeping superheroes illegal in New York City, which are complicating Spider-Man's response to the new threat. And in a more immediate sense, they've got to deal with an AIM faction that's taking advantage of the situation on the ground in New York City, as seen in the pages here. Boy, I can't believe how good these John Romita Jr. pages are. I feel like John Romita Jr.'s contributions over to Marvel in the last few years have been incredibly mixed. I was such a big fan of some of his work with like JMS, as well as some of his work, previously over at Marvel. I don't feel like all of John Romita Jr.'s pencils are quite as consistent as they should be, but in these rare moments where everything connects, I'm really finding myself still drawn over to his art after all this time here. Also, watching our characters kind of quip together and reference the fact that they're almost like tanking, like in a video game over with She-Hulk, is really, really fun. I think the way that Spider-Man is trying to individually slot these like, Spider-Man crime fighters into like tank or like DPS stances, like in a video game, so much fun here. Yeah, another really strong sequence over on the next page with Jennifer kind of leaping out of this coat that she's wearing and really delivering a strong kick on the next page. I think we have just a great sense of action, a great sense of motion over on the page too. And then we have Elektra fighting back against some of these AIM agents as well on this next page. Once again, really solid action from Spider Man and the rest of his supporting characters as they're fighting back against just this massive gang influence threat over in the issue. Speaking of art that I really enjoy from John Romita Jr., I think this cover for Amazing Spider Man 39 also plays directly into his strengths as a creator as well. I think some of the rounded lines, some of the interesting expressions for all these disparate heroes are really, really interesting. You know, over in that Gang War Amazing Spider-Man like first strike issue, I liked some of the plot threads in that book, but I was really looking for Zeb Wells to kind of tease out those individual character relationships. I really want to see Janice Lincoln interact over with Spider-Man as well as some of these other characters as well as individuals like Tombstone. I feel like what I want is just on the horizon for the Amazing Spider-Man, but I feel like this storyline has so much potential and it hasn't yet capitalized on it. I think the best thing I've seen so far out of this Gang War story really has to be that Spider-Woman comic book. Gang War kicks off here. Supercrime is running rampant, and Amazing Spider-Man can't solve just one problem at a time, reads Marvel's official description of issue 39. Spidey builds a team to take down all the super criminals in New York City in 48 hours. Good luck, Spidey. Several members of Spidey's team will also see Gang War spill into their own titles, including Miles Morales' ongoing Spider-Man and new spin-off limited series launching for Elektra Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Spider-Woman. The event will run through February with big ramifications promised for the state of the Marvel Universe. One of the things I'm most excited for amidst all of these different aspects of the Gang War is to see what Shang-Chi is doing over with some of the villains, some of the crime lords of the issue. I've actually read that Shang-Chi is looking to go undercover and divert like some of his family's resources to stop some of these gang-esque characters. I can't wait to check out Shang-Chi's Gang War comic book, and I feel like this storyline has so much potential here. I hope that Zeb Wells and all these other creators are able to capitalize on are able to go ahead and capitalize on it as we begin the Gang War in just a few days here. Okay, let's see what else the Amazing Spider-Man property has in store. We also have a really big, a really exciting upcoming comic book here featuring two of my favorite characters, two of my favorite Spider-Man supporting characters. This is a look over at a cover that I'm not particularly a huge fan of over on Jackpot and Black Cat. This is Jackpot and Black Cat issue 1, a brand new 4-issue comic book series coming in over from Marvel. This one is actually written over from Celeste Bronfman, featuring art from Emilio Laiso and a cover from Adam Hughes. I was a big fan of the last Mary Jane and Black Cat miniseries. I think Jed MacKay did a fantastic job fleshing that book out and connecting some of the plot threads over to the core Amazing Spider-Man book. I really hope that this upcoming series has a lot of those same elements. I'm also a little bit puzzled, frankly, by the direction Marvel has gone in with Black Cat. For a little while, I felt like Zeb Wells was really trying to establish Black Cat as Spider-Man's next relationship. But after he broke up with her in a really interesting, in a really brief way in a previous Spider-Man issue, I feel like we haven't gotten a ton of Felicia Hardy in the main series. I'm frankly really excited to go ahead and check in with her. I'm also very interested in Mary Jane's plot arc right now. She's recently gotten these jackpot powers, which a lot of people right from the get-go like to say is a little bit silly. But I think the one aspect about Mary Jane getting powers that isn't silly is the fact that she just recently lost her kids. In the What Did Peter Do storyline, we saw Mary Jane go off with this character named Paul, seemingly because he already had this family established. And towards the end of that storyline, we learn that these children never really existed. And it's given Mary Jane just so much emotional turmoil to try and lift her spirits. Black Cat has given her this suit. And I want to explore what the writer of Celeste Bronfman has in store for the future of these two characters. I'm really looking to give this comic book a chance, because I know Bronfman has plotted some of this information over in previous Spider-Man issues, and I feel like there's a lot of really interesting potential here. The one thing about this book for me is it's a little bit sad to see that Jed MacKay is not involved here. Emilio Liso has delivered some preview pages, or actually interior pages in the main Spider-Man book for Gang War, and they've looked amazing. I feel like Liso is a fantastic pick and is great at depicting the individual character interactions over for these stories. All right, let's go ahead and check out this new Marvel issue to see what new information I can get about this Jackpot and Black Cat comic book. Felicia Hardy and Mary Jane Watson have always had more in common than they think. And this March, they'll combine their wits, expertise, and superpowers to take down an emerging new threat in Jackpot and Black Cat. The 4-issue limited series is written by Celeste Bronfman, who penned both Mary Jane's first outing as Jackpot earlier this year in Amazing Spider-Man 925 and her first solo issue as Jackpot that hit stands in January. I am really hoping that that comic book over in January is going to be really good to go ahead and set up this issue. After teaming up in Jed MacKay and CFV's Eisner-nominated Black Cat and Mary Jane Beyond One Shot, as well as the Mary Jane and Black Cat Dark Web tie-in series, Mary Jane and Felicia Hardy have risen to be one of Marvel's most dynamic duos. Now that Mary Jane is an up-and-coming superhero herself, they'll be taking the Bond to the next level on an action-packed adventure to take down a villain that's blackmailing everyone, including Black Cat and Mary Jane. Tough choices and daring missions await as Black Cat and Mary Jane have become entangled in a plot that's brought the world to its knees. Luck be the ladies when someone blackmails Black Cat into a public and blatant crime spree. Jackpot comes to her aid. What classic Spider villain is behind the blackmail? Someone with history, at least, with one of our titular heroines. MJ's been a hero since day one, and I'm so excited to continue her journey as Jackpot. This time with Felicia Hardy by her side, Bronfman shared. Opposites attract, and I've always loved the push and pull of their friendship. Expect them to butt heads through heists, betrayals, and the unexpected. So the Mary Jane and Black Cat storyline that was happening over in Dark Web was really intriguing as well, because Black Cat actually disclosed over to Mary Jane that she was in this relationship over with Peter Parker. Watching their relationship dynamics evolve over in the end of that miniseries was really fantastic, and I was hoping that Zeb Wells was going to continue actually fleshing out the relationship between Black Cat and Spider-Man, especially like after this miniseries set up so many disparate aspects of it. So really hoping that we're going to get some strong Black Cat plot threads reestablished in this upcoming series. This one is on sale over on March 27th. The final thing I want to say about this book before we move on is I really love Adam Hughes as an artist, but I think some of the anatomy is definitely off in terms of the cover, not only for Mary Jane, but for Black Cat as well. I hope that just moving forward, Hughes is able to strike more of a balance between, giving fans what they want and making sure that these individual characters look like actual human superheroes as opposed to just these really amorphous figures that we have over on this cover here. Although I do like the expressions for both of these characters over on the page. Check out the debut issues cover now and be there for Mary Jane and Black Cat's next great caper when Jackpot and Black Cat issue 1 hit stands over in March. All right, hope you enjoyed our exploration with Black Cat and Jackpot. Maybe the one thing I want to say about that particular book that we really haven't discussed yet is the fact that all these disparate Amazing Spider-Man tie-in comics have fleshed out these like individual plot threads in the issues, and I'm really hoping that this comic book will do the same thing. It was very interesting to me at this one point where we had that Mary Jane and Black Cat comic book, we had the Gold Goblin comic book, all introduced like these small plot threads that weave back into Spider-Man Spider-Man has done the same thing lately by introducing all these miniseries over in time for the gang war. And I hope the publisher like just continues to write these comic books in that way and to make sure they link up all these disparate stories with each other. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about our next news story. This one is very strange, just to be quite honest here. It looks like the upcoming Marvel comic book, which we've only gotten a few issues of, known as Avengers Inc., is already set to come to an end. This one is coming in over from George Marston at GamesRadar.com. Want to speak a little bit about my experience over with Avengers Inc. before we dive into this article. So, I was really looking forward to this issue and series in general. I've been a big fan of not only Leonard Kirk, the artist for this book, but especially Al Ewing. I think the characters of like the Wasp, as well as Victor Shade slash the Vision, are really, really endearing. But I think when this book actually came out and hit stands, there was a really rushed plot setting and status quo. I think that some of the art was a little bit illegible, and the whole thing was just much more difficult to read than I had anticipated here. I feel like maybe Al Ewing was having a hard time translating some of the ideas over in his scripts over to the page. And to be honest, I really do think Al Ewing's time would be much better served if he was writing a different comic book series or a different sort of status quo. I've continually tried to give Avengers Inc. chance after chance after chance, and that book has just not been sticking with me. I don't think this is a bad idea for Marvel, and I really hope that in his next project, Al Ewing will be much more focused. Avengers Inc. has been a quirky, bright spot in Marvel's line, and it's ending way too soon. There's about to be an Avengers Inc. shaped hole in my heart, as the Avengers mystery solving spinoff will apparently prematurely end with issue 5, according to a Substack post from Marvel Comics executive editor Tom Brevoort. Unfortunately, there weren't enough like you, so we will be wrapping up this series with issue 5, Brevoort states in response to a fan question about whether Avengers Inc. would continue. I just kind of want to say in the background, even as a big comic book reader, it's a little bit disappointing that we get some of these news stories over in like substacks of like executive editors. When Marvel's canceling a series, I would like them to state so kind of publicly so readers are a little bit more in the know. I feel bad for anybody who may have just checked out the Avengers Inc. issue 1 over off the stands and then is just like confused about where the series has gone just after a couple issues here. As one of Avengers Inc.'s apparently few readers, I have to say I'm disappointed. Avengers Inc. has been a bright spot of talent in Marvel's line thanks to Al Ewing and artist Leonard Kirk, who along with inker Bellardino Bravo, colorist Alex Sinclair, and cover artist Daniel Lacuna have crafted the kind of quirky, character-driven story that is becoming more and more scant at Marvel in favor of a focus on a few marquee titles popped up by an ever-expanded roster of limited series. There are a lot of limited series being published over at Marvel right now. It feels like the majority of Fall of X is happening in these limited series. I don't necessarily know if it's a bad thing because I just keep thinking about these ongoing series that last such a long time. Readers don't know to pick up the first issue and then they have to check it out in the middle of the run, as opposed to just giving a character like Miss Marvel a new miniseries like every 4 or 5 months. I'm not quite sure what the right answer is. I'm not really too concerned with what the right answer is because I feel like so much of the publishing content that Marvel is releasing is really, really strong right now. In the case of Avengers Inc., though, I don't think the plan that Marvel had in place was very solid, was very conducive to them launching a successful series. And it also kind of breaks my heart here because I love some of the concepts and ideas this book is taking on. Characters like the Black Ants, characters like the other Ant-Man heroes, as well as like Jane Foster as the Valkyrie was so fascinating. I wish this book just managed to find a much stronger and a much bolder way to present the plot and ideas to readers. And that way, it's a bit shocking in the sense that an Avengers title from Ewing and Kirk, two veteran creators with strong reputations among fans, couldn't break through enough to stick out from its planned ongoing run. The book certainly hasn't lacked in intrigue or flair. The mystery solving aspect puts a new twist on the Avengers franchise, and Janet Van Dyne is the perfect character to headline a concept like that, especially given the no capes edict handed down by Mayor Luke Cage. Gives Kirk an opportunity to flex on the fashion side of the winsome Wasp's classic comic reputation. And on the other side of the Avengers coin, the new Vic Shade has provided a handy foil for Janet's investigations. His connection to the title's larger subplot involving the return of Hank Pym has picked up on subplots from Ewing's previous Ant-Man limited series and its accompanying Wasp limited series, building on a story the writer has been telling for quite some time. Ewing is the kind of writer who has the skills to wrap up Avengers Inc.'s big through lines in truncated 2 issues. But it's still a little heartbreaking that the title won't get a chance to grow past its initial premise, and that the Avengers line has seemingly fallen back to the point where it's only able to sustain a single core ongoing title. Here's hoping that Avengers Inc. gets the treatment several other gone too soon ongoing titles have recently received, with the relaunch as a limited series designed to give more closure to the characters and story. I'm really wondering if that's what Marvel's Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch comic book is from Steve Orlando and Lorenzo Tometa. I thought it was a little interesting that they winded down the Scarlet Witch book so soon after the fan reception was really strong over to that book. I think it's really interesting too how Alan Ewing crafts all these meta narratives between these disparate comic books. We've gotten the return of the plot thread from the main Ant-Man series, from the Wasp series, and maybe it was supposed to reach more of a natural conclusion over in Avengers Inc. I know that Al Ewing probably still has such a strong, such like a powerful like working relationship over with Marvel right now that I don't think we have to worry. I feel like he'll find a way to introduce all these subplots in a really epic story in the near future. I'm really hoping that Marvel will just help Ewing find like an outlet for him that's a little bit stronger and a little bit more focused over besides Avengers Inc. I want to be honest too. I feel like one of the things that probably has weighed this series down is the more muted coloring from Alex Sinclair. I don't think Leonard Kirk's art needs like that muted sense of colors, and I did think it brought down some of my enjoyment of the issue as a whole. All right. Well, thank you so much for sticking with us through our coverage over with Avengers Inc. Honestly, I think that series coming to an end a little bit early is potentially a good thing over at Marvel. Let's go ahead and talk about an absolutely massive, a sizable news story that happened over in the last couple weeks here. Let's go ahead and take a look over at Marvel Comics Free Comic Book Day. Marvel's 2024 Free Comic Book Day titles offer the first taste of Blood Hunt, a prelude to the X-Men's new era, and more. On May 4th, celebrate Free Comic Book Day at your local comic book shop by taking thrilling first steps into Marvel's most monumental upcoming stories. It's one of the biggest days for the comic book industry, and this year, Marvel has whipped up something for every fan with 5 Free Comic Book Day titles. With exciting lead-ins to Marvel's next crossover event, Blood Hunt, the X-Men's post-Krakoan era, what's on the horizon for the new Ultimate Universe, and more. It's a must-have for fans who want entry points to the most anticipated comic book sagas of 2024. So I have to say already, just from reading some of the opening paragraphs within this article, it looks like Marvel's Free Comic Book Day 2024 is going to be pretty big. The more that time goes by, the more excited I am over for the Blood Hunt story happening in the Avengers books from Jed MacKay. Jed MacKay is a really strong writer. Getting to see him like take on all these vampire subplots and really introduce all these elements with characters like Blade and his daughter Bloodline has a lot of potential here. Also, I'm very excited to see the next stages over within the Ultimate Universe. I think so far the Ultimate Universe has been nothing but fantastic from all these disparate books. One of my biggest complaints about the core Ultimate Universe is that not enough changed. And I feel like in this brand new slate of series, there's been all these interesting status quos to mix up and shake up some of these ongoing plot threads to give us just really interesting and dynamic superhero comics material. What else do we have? We also have the next stages in the post X-Men Krakoan era. One thing I keep hearing across the internet more and more and more, and one thing I think we've also touched on a previous stream, is that James Tynion the Fourth may be the writer of the new post Krakoan era X-Men comic. I am really, really hoping that's true. I think Tynion is a fantastic writer. I think he's done an excellent job balancing all these younger characters over within the latter half of his Batman run. I think it would be so awesome to see him take on the main core X-Men series. I'm just chomping at the bit to see who the actual creative team is, and I feel like we're going to be very excited when that new X-Men title finally comes out here. Let's go ahead and explore more about this article. For the first time ever, fitting May the 4th, Marvel is proud to offer a Star Wars free comic book day title which explores the exciting storytelling coming to the galaxy far, far away. In addition, Marvel will also once again spotlight creators and characters from different cultures, communities, and identities, and provide the perfect first comic for new readers with the return of Free Comic Book Day Marvel's Voices and Free Comic Book Day Spidey and his amazing friends. Read on to learn more. All right, I think this is one of the absolute biggest books here, Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe, issue 1. Really seeing like all these disparate Ultimate Marvel Universe characters captured on a cover by a different artist who we're used to seeing is pretty arresting here. Love the fact that we have individuals like Iron Lad as well as Spider-Man featured prominently on the cover. This, of course, is illustrated over by Ryan Stegman, and it looks like alongside teasing some of these new aspects for the Ultimate Universe, we may even get the chance to preview Amazing Spider-Man issue 50. Just weeks ahead of Amazing Spider-Man 50, get the first taste of the return of the Goblin. Plus, prepare for the next evolutionary step of the Ultimate Universe as a powerful new hero debuts. But it doesn't end there. There are some surprises up our sleeve for this one. I am looking forward to Gang War, but I don't think that some of the elements of the Gang War are conducive to like the greatest Spider-Man storyline of all time. I'm so interested to see if Zeb Wells is going to return to those plot threads over with Ben Reilly in future issues, and if that's what everything is leading towards over in Amazing Spider-Man issue 50. This next one is also very, very exciting here. Free Comic Book Day 2024, Blood Hunt and X-Men issue 1. I like the aesthetic that Marvel has teased for the Blood War. It's seeming like it's taken on a more violent aesthetic. It feels like all these characters right now are fighting, like these really strong and like disparate threats over across the Marvel universe. Very happy to see like newer characters like Bloodline featured over on this cover. We also have a tease at more classic characters like Daredevil and Spider-Man. Of course, I know like the big thing about this individual issue that we are really anticipating is whatever that new X-Men tease is. But I think Marvel is probably going to be loose-lipped up until the point where we receive this issue in full. Free Comic Book Day 2024 Blood Hunt X-Men 1. Written by Jed MacKay and Gail Simone, featuring art by Sarah Pichelli and David Marquez, and a cover by Cale New. Time once again for a shot of all new Marvel goodness, absolutely free. First, witness the overture to this summer's major crossover event starring the Avengers Blood Hunt, and then get a glimpse of the future of mutant kind as Jubilee learns that you cannot go home again. I didn't actually know that Gail Simone was attached over to this individual comic book. Oh boy, if Gail Simone was the next writer of the main X-Men series, I would actually be super, super excited. Gail Simone just has a great sense of humor and is able to write like really dark characters, which you can see referenced in comics like Secret Six. Plus, we have David Marquez. Sarah Pichelli and David Marquez are two of my like all-time top five artists over at Marvel, especially Sarah Pichelli. I think like the nimble way that Sarah Pichelli's line fleshes out characters gives like so much subtext and expression over to individual comics. David Marquez so fantastic with like draftsmanship and rendering like really strong anatomy on the individual characters too. I would just love it if that was the creative team on the new X-Men book. That'd be so much fun. This comic book issue also looks pretty interesting. We have characters like Nico, Miles, America Chavez. Looks like we have Moon Girl featured here too. Very fun cover, really draped in tons of negative space. This is Free Comic Book Day 2024, Marvel's Voices 1, written by Nikesh Shukla and more, featuring art from Tadam Gyadu and more, and a cover by Anand Ramcharan. I hope I got those names right. Celebrating a year of Marvel's Voices with a brand new story starring Spider-Man India. Very cool. Discover the legacy of the last Black Panther. Join Web Weaver in hot pursuit of a new thief in New York City. Jam out with Spider-Gwen and see the world of the X-Men through a whole new lens. All this and more awaits in a special edition of Marvel's Voices. Plus, return to Earth 50101, the home of Pavadar Prabhakar, Spider-Man of Mumbai. Oh, very cool. For a new pulse-pounding adventure by celebrated writer Nikesh Shukla and artist Tadam Gyadu. Yeah, very fascinated to see what the experimentation of Marvel's Voices leads to, and if any of the roster of talent featured on this issue are going to be featured a little bit more prominently across Marvel's other comic books. Looks like this is the Star Wars issue, one of the first Star Wars Free Comic Book Day comics from Marvel. This one is called Star Wars Darth Vader Issue 1. Really fantastic Phil Noto cover over on the page here. This one written by Charles Soule and Greg Pak, featuring art from Ibrahim Robinson and Ramon Rosanas. We do not have the time to cover the Star Wars comics over on our stream, but suffice to say, this is an extremely solid creative team featured here. We also, sadly, do not have enough time for Spidey and his amazing friends, but we appreciate the new readers you hopefully bring in over to the comic book industry. That was our preview over in Marvel's Free Comic Book Day. I feel like between this Blood Hunt comic book and this Ultimate Amazing Spider-Man issue, we have some really good stuff in store this year. Sometimes I'm not very excited about the comic books that Marvel's previewing. Like, I remember in the past when we got an issue that was like solely devoted to teasing the next year of Jason Aaron's Avengers run, which just never clicked with me. That was super, super disappointing. So to me, it feels like we're in a much stronger place this time. I cannot wait for this May to go ahead and check out some of these new titles and to hopefully hear about who the new creative team is over on the core X-Men comic book series. Oh, I just saw something really fun that we have to talk about. Let's see here. Two fun things, actually. All right. So, one comic book, or one creator really, who has impressed me above all else in the past couple months over at Marvel Comics is none other than Toron Grönbeck. I have loved comic books like Realm of X, as well as the new identity of the protagonist of the core Venom series. We've recently seen Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, get a symbiote of her very own, and she's using the symbiote to work alongside Eddie Brock's son Dylan, who also has a symbiote over of his very own. Together, they've been trying to save this character of Bren, who's been kidnapped by this organization called No Name. Let's go ahead and see if Natasha and Dylan are able to save Bren in the pages of Venom issue 28. This time they're teamed up over by Bren's father named Oscar. This one coming in over from Adventures in Poor Taste, a symbiotic free-for-all. Freshly united and teamed up, Venom and Toxin fight like hell to save one of the Marvel Universe's greatest heroes from the darkness within her, unleashed by an all-new, all-horrifying symbiote. Remember how Venom used to eat brains, then got over that as it tried to become a hero? Well, this symbiote doesn't share that kind of nature. Grayson Red, really good to have you in the chat today. You're definitely going to want to check out some of the artwork and the fantastic writing over from Toran Grönbeck on Venom 28. Let's go ahead and get caught up to speed over on the events of the issue in the last paragraph of this issue setting up Venom 28. After an altercation with No Name, Bren Walters was separated from the Toxin symbiote and kidnapped. With Toxin weakened and no leads on Bren's location, Venom and Widow captured Bren's father, Oscar, to coerce him into helping him. But they're running out of time before Bren becomes No Name's latest victim. On the next page, we get to see some of the last moments in the previous chapter of Venom as Oscar, Dylan, and Natasha have come together to try and save the hero of Bren. Plus, we can really see them operating alongside their symbiotes and trying to save Oscar from being shot over from a really strong gunshot in the first panel of the page. I think there's some really strong page composition here over from Julius Ota and Rafael Pimentel, setting up the fact that there's a giant gun blast that all these characters have to evade in some of the oncoming panels. Also, it's interesting to see how Dylan's symbiote over with Venom can be a little bit violent across some of these pages too, which contrasts really nicely with what Eddie Brock is going through over in the main series. We get even more teases at the fact that these no-name characters have all these like disparate characters that they're able to go ahead and send in. And over on this last panel, I like how our Toxin and Venom characters are finally on to the fact that Bren's father, Oscar, has a little bit more information than what he's letting on here. In this final panel, Venom says, "But you know something, or they wouldn't be trying to kill you. You need to start talking, Oscar." I think that some of the dark aesthetic over for the issue in all the ways that these disparate characters are coming together have been incredibly intriguing. I'm very excited to see where Toran Grönbeck is headed next over with Venom, but I hope these characters are able to rescue Bren in the very near future here, as I want to make sure that this storyline doesn't drag on too long in the comic book, and that we're going to get to see Natasha in a really fascinating status quo element that'll really make her need to utilize her symbiote. Also, I think the idea that Toran Grönbeck has really established here with the fact that Natasha's symbiote is eating brains is a super compelling plot point that I also want to see explored in a lot more context here. All right, hope you enjoyed our preview over of Venom 28. And we have yet another really fantastic comic book to go ahead and take a look at as well. This is the Timeless Issue 1 brand new comic book series that's set to establish so many upcoming plot threads for future books across the Marvel Universe. Timeless #1 First Look offers a glimpse at the Marvel Universe's devastating future. In a special first look at Timeless 1, Power Man, the Marvel Universe's final living superhero, battles Moon Knight Unending on the moon. This one written over from Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, featuring art over from Juan Cabal, and we have a cover from Cale New. Each year, Marvel puts out one of these timeless issues to set up all these like disparate plot points over in the Marvel Universe that readers are going to see over the next year across their publishing line. One of my favorite examples in talking about how these timeless one-shots can set up big future storylines is we got Avengers like issue 8 teased over in the timeless one-shot from the previous year. In Timeless 2023 issue 1, Lansing and Kelly and artist Juan Cabal take you to the Marvel Universe's final days. There, Power Man, the last living superhero, faces off against Moon Knight Unending, a nightmare assembled by Stark Tech, the Eternal Machine, and the God of the Moon. With the unstable powers of Sentry, Hulk, and Iron Fist, Power Man must engage in this deeply personal conflict to stave off Khonshu's coming tide of chaos. But can the Marvel Universe ever truly be saved? A special first look at Timeless One finds Power Man gazing down upon a glowing pyramid before he removes his cowl and looks up to the sky. One page offers a clear view of Moon Knight Unending, who places his fingers and thumbs together to blast Power Man with a powerful beam of light. Power and Moon Knight Unending's subsequent battle takes them into space, then to the moon for a brutal and bloody throwdown. I have loved Juan Cabal's art. I think Juan Cabal is a really fantastic artist at depicting really strong anatomy and character movement as well. In these massive action sequence over with Moon Knight Unending and Luke Cage, I feel like we get a lot of those elements too. The way that Cage's like right arm has seemingly been displaced adds this element of grit over to the issue too. There's a really strong sense of composition and layout on the page as we get to see Luke Cage just throwing punch after punch over at Moon Knight Unending. Wow, sadly, it looks like, oh no, we do have a little bit more interiors. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the interiors for the upcoming Timeless issue 1. Really strong architecture and design across the page over from artist Juan Cabal. Another really intriguing way to introduce Moon Knight Unending. I feel like Moon Knight's left arm, the way that he's kind of draping it across the page, builds up a ton of tension. We get to see a really strong reaction shot over from Luke. And then Moon Knight is doing something with his hands, introducing a triangle. The way that he's sporting the Eye of Agamotto, and the way that the Eye of Agamotto is actually like opening its eye over on the final panel, super harrowing as well. I'm starting to notice more when artists utilize canted angles, but utilizing these canted angles alongside negative space and chopping up the panels, that is pretty ambitious. That's pretty postmodern. I love the way that Juan Cabal designs all these pages. I'm starting to realize it now, but the way that this panel is crooked, draped in negative space, and introduces this bleed over with Moon Knight is just absolutely mind-bending. It's so funny to analyze Juan Cabal's art in a lot more detail because it looks so clean and so like measured. But if you actually look into it over in some of these fight scenes, there's some really wild and ambitious ideas. I would love to see maybe Juan Cabal utilize even more interesting page layouts. I feel like artist Russell Dauterman is so fantastic over in comic books like Thor and Scarlet Witch at introducing all of these layouts that just explode your brain, as well as having characters and art that looks so clean and easy to see on the page. I'd love to see Juan Cabal take even more chances as he gets more comfortable over as an artist at Marvel. Once again, look at all these canted angles. Look at the negative space, the really interesting panel border, the bleed on the final page, or the final panel here. Once again, really fantastic art. If Juan Cabal is not on your radar at Marvel, Juan Cabal absolutely should be here. Yeah, we already had the pleasure of breaking down all the really interesting movement on this page and the way that Luke Cage is carrying himself too. Yet another really strong cover over from Cale New. I'm starting to pick up on what Cale New's covers look like because of all of the lines and a lot of the geometry that he uses as well. There you go. That was the Timeless one-shot. I feel a little bit like a fool because when this series was first announced, I wasn't very excited for it. But as more and more time goes on, and as we get to see more of these interior pages, as well as some of the artwork, I find myself actually really hyped and really excited to see where Timeless is headed this upcoming year. It looks like this one is coming out over on December 27th. I think another thing that throws me about these Timeless issues is the fact that they're introduced towards the end of the year. I'm not sure why, but my brain wants to slot them towards the beginning of the year to set up all these like different mysteries over in terms of Marvel's core publishing line. All right, let's see what else we have in store for today. Okay, I'm seeing a really fantastic story that we can talk about relating over to Spider Man. And let's see if we have anything else for today. Let's see here. Oh, we actually have some breaking news to talk about today. In fact, I'm going to check for any more breaking news. Thank you for your patience. AfroSF says, I love the timeless one shots. I guess they replaced the point one shots from a decade or so ago. Oh, those were so bad. Something about the way those were advertised and like the way they actually shipped were just so confusing. Also, the naming convention was really weird. All right, let me show you what we have. There's a couple screenshots that I'm seeing over from Popverse. It looks like the Los Angeles Comic Con is happening right now. This is a cover, an image that Popverse posted. It looks like in the Spider-Man and the Miles Morales comic book, we're gonna get a massive issue, an anniversary issue that's gonna be the 300th legacy issue, coming in from Cody Ziegler, Federico Vicentini, Sarah Pichelli, David Marquez, Juan Cabal, and more. Kind of cool that Sarah Pichelli and David Marquez are both featured over on this issue because they had such a strong contribution over to Miles. Frankly, I would also love to see Brian Michael Bendis also featured across this issue too. And I meant to have this image up on the screen a little bit earlier. This is the anniversary issue for Miles Morales Spider-Man that I got over from Popverse. Big thank you to them. It looks like this article was written over from Tiffany Babb. All right, let's go ahead and explore the other piece of breaking news that I think is even more exciting than this one. It looks like Marvel is introducing a brand new giant size 50th one shot. Looks like this one is coming in over from Melissa Flores and Alba Glez. These giant size issues over at Marvel tease like big status quos, big ideas. We've already gotten a tease over at the Miles Morales issue. That one looks really exciting because he's fighting the character of Venom, now occupied by Dylan, Eddie's son Dylan. Plus, there was the Fantastic Four issue that looks like it's introducing a new character and fleshing out some plot threads over with Namor. So now we're also being treated to this Spider-Gwen chapter set to being published over in March. And by the way, this one is written from David Brooke on Adventures in Poor Taste, Big thank you to them for posting this article so incredibly fast. Marvel Comics revealed today at the Gang War panel at LA Comic Con another giant size special as part of the 50th anniversary of the line, and it's Spider Gwen's turn. Written by Melissa Flores with art by Alba Glez, including a new Doc Ock. Helping Gwen Stacy settle into her home dimension in Spider Gwen Smash was an incredible pleasure. Being given the opportunity to continue to develop these relationships in this one shot was an unexpected jolt of euphoria that I never saw coming. I wasn't ready to leave Gwen or Earth 65 behind. I'm so thankful now that I don't have to. So, what's Giant Size Spider Gwen all about? Swinging from the pages of Spider Gwen Smash, Gwen Stacy has finally found balance in her home dimension. But when the remnants of the Carnage symbiote resurface in Gwen's bandmate Mary Jane, they attract the attention of something sinister. Orlando Octavius, the adopted son of Dr. Octopus, now has his sights set on MJ, and Spider-Gwen will have to save her friend from the gauntlet of new and terrifying villains in this oversized spectacular. I'm guessing right now that this cover is coming in over from Brian Hitch. Yes, so it looks like this issue is on sale March 6th, written over from Melissa Flores, featuring art from Alba Glez and a cover by Brian Hitch. I'm not quite sure how interested I am in getting attached to Spider-Gwen as a character. I still say right now that Marvel really needs to give me a reason to care. I think introducing this character who is related to Otto Octavius is actually quite interesting, but I need to see a little bit of an interesting story plot hook. I need a reason to get invested into the Spider-Gwen property. I think this cover from Brian Hitch is actually pretty good. However, some of the anatomy is a little weird. It's a lot of these limbs, a lot of these appendages are way too long across this particular tale. But I do like the perspective and the way that Spider-Gwen is kind of flinging up towards the camera over in this individual shot. And there you go. That is just about everything I have to say over on Giant Size Spider-Gwen #1. I'll see how this issue fares and if it really gives me a reason to get invested into this character. Okay, we're actually going to go ahead and wind down our stream today with one final article. This one is called Inside the Two Generations of Gang War. To me, this one is really interesting because it shows all the different ways that the gang war is interacting with all these disparate characters. Let's go ahead and check this one out right now. This event isn't just about Marvel crime families, but actual families too. Learn more about the superpowered parents and kids in Marvel Comics' next big crossover. This one posted on Marvel.com, written over from Jade Stewart. To the victor goes the city. An upcoming Marvel Comics crossover event, Gang War, the supervillains, crime lords, and criminals of New York are about to wage an all-out war to determine their leader, and it's up to Spider-Man and his allies to take them all down. Even with New York City Mayor Luke Cage and the city's anti-vigilance laws in place, Peter Parker will need an all-new team of heroes, including Miles, She-Hulk, Daredevil, and Spider-Woman to take on the forces of villains like Hobgoblin, Mr. Negative, Hammerhead, and more. In a war, it's important to know your opponents. In the upcoming Gang War, there are not only crime families, but also actual families involved. Ahead of its prelude issue, we're examining the event's intergenerational connections between parents, kids, and the extended family, plus their histories so far. I think this article is really fascinating in how it breaks down the individual pieces of the gang war into more of like a bite-sized approach here. First of all, this article is going to start by introducing the Fisk slate of characters. Of course, we have Kingpin. Wilson Fisk has had an iron grip on New York City for as long as he's appeared in Marvel Comics. to the point where he became mayor of the city at the end of the 2015 run of Daredevil issue 28 after being ousted from his corrupt seat in office and escaping incarceration. Fisk retired to the mutant island of Krakoa and, thanks to his marriage to Typhoid Mary, became a citizen. He would later become the White King of the Hellfire Club after the tragic events of this year's Hellfire Gala. Next up, we have Typhoid Mary. The mutant Mary Walker has been causing chaos since her debut, either with fire, telepathy, telekinesis, or weaponry. Sometimes all four. She had a brief stint as a nun, going under the name Sister Elizabeth, but she would return to crime by working as Kingpin's bodyguard with help from Kingpin. It was revealed in Daredevil issue 22 that she gained control over her various identities and eventually fell in love with Wilson Fisk and became his wife. Unfortunately, during her first Hellfire Gala, the anti-mutant organization known as Orchis attacked. Walker, alongside other mutants, fled through a gateway and landed in Vanaheim, one of the 10 realms. There is no way we're going to talk about, the character of Typhoid Mary without referencing Realm of X. Of course, Realm of X is the series where all these disparate mutants walk through this mystical gate leading to Vanaheim towards the end of the Hellfire Gala. I very recently, this morning, had the chance to read the end of the series, written by Toran Grönbeck, featuring art from Diogenes Nevis. I still have nothing but just positive things to say about this story. I thought it was really fantastic how they used the character of Typhoid Mary and actually have her go back a little bit on her relationship over with Wilson Fisk. We saw that Typhoid Mary was unfaithful to him over across Realm of X. The way that Realm of X pitted like all these really strange mutants against the character of Saturnine was just absolutely mystifying here, and I found it really interesting that all these characters are finally headed home now that the series is wrapped up, and they're all going to be featured across all of these individual comics. I think it's so interesting that Marvel took some really big characters like Magic off the board for about 4 months to go ahead and detail this series. And now that it's kind of winding down, it looks like all these characters are going to return to their main books and where they've been spending most of their time recently. I hope that Toran Grönbeck is able to revisit some of the elements over in Realm of X again. I think that everything about this storyline was super compelling. The way that Nevis laid out some of the pages and illustrated all these like different and really interesting like character facial expressions was really interesting. If you have not checked Realm of X, really solid, really engaging Marvel comic book that really interacts with all these characters in fascinating ways. The Rose. And this was actually a lot more important earlier on to the Marvel's main Amazing Spider-Man book. Richard Fisk has a very contentious relationship with his dad, as in he has tried to usurp and/or assassinate Wilson Fisk on many occasions. It's ironic because when Richard died, Kingpin revived him with the Tablet of Life and Destiny and the Tablet of Life and Entropy in giant-size Amazing Spider-Man King's Ransom issue 1, out of love for Richard's mother Vanessa. However, his dad would overlook Richard and give the Kingpin title to his half-brother Byron Butch Ferris instead. The Rose just can't catch a break. This is a really fun panel. We see the Rose saying over to Wilson Fisk, "Hello, Daddy." Meet the Lincolns, Tombstone and Beetle. I'm a lot more interested in the Lincolns right now than I am the Fisks. So Tombstone, let's talk a little bit about the horror of Harlem. Lonnie Thompson, Lincoln, is a major crime boss in New York City and has been for years. He's also had a long-standing feud with Robbie Robertson. This feud inadvertently led to Lincoln being mutated with Deox 3 in recent times. Tombstone and Robbie worked together to save their kids and would call a truce in Amazing Spider-Man 66. Janice Lincoln may be an attorney, but she was always drawn to her father's Tombstone lifestyle. When she had a chance to get a superpowered suit courtesy of Baron Zemo and the Fixer in Superior Foes of Spider-Man 7, she just couldn't say no. And as the Beetle, Janice unsuccessfully fought Captain America, Bucky Barnes, and Black Widow, and was a former member of Boomerang's Sinister Six. Further proving her commitment to crime, Janice created the Syndicate, a group composed of other female supervillains. In her personal life, she's partnered with and plans to marry Randy Robertson. Janice Lincoln suits up for the first time as the Beetle in the Superior Foes of Spider-Man. Superior Foes of Spider-Man was a wonderful comic book over at Marvel. I feel like a lot of what Zeb Wells is doing is playing off the relationship set up in that book over from Nick Spencer and Steve Lieber. You cannot miss that recent Spider-Man comic. Meet the Robertsons, Robbie and Randy Robertson. Joseph Robertson, a Harlem native, Robbie is a longtime editor of the Daily Bugle newspaper and a career journalist who focuses on the news instead of sensational tabloids. Robertson is an ally to Spider-Man, and on the flip side, he's an enemy to Tombstone. Oddly enough, Randy, Robbie's son, is in a serious relationship with Tombstone's daughter. Robbie tried to get his son to drop his relationship with the Beetle, but that's not happening. In the interest of their kids' happiness, he and Tombstone decided not to interfere in their children's lives and made peace with each other in Amazing Spider-Man 66. Randy has had an interesting life so far, going from college student, actor, frontline employee, temporary spider hero to social worker. He's another Spider-Man ally and Peter Parker's roommate. While sharing an apartment, the Beetle broke in, searching for Boomerang, and he fell head over heels for her. After being rescued from the clutches of Madame Mask and Crime Master 5, the couple moved in together in The Amazing Spider-Man 65, and what followed next was an engagement. So it looks like we have one final family over in the gang war. This is related to Miles Morales with the Prowler and Miles. Prowler, brother to Jefferson Morales, Miles' dad. Aaron Davis is an uncle by day and a criminal by night. He died on Earth 1610, but after the death and rebirth of the multiverse during Secret Wars, he returned and now lives on Earth 616. And then went right back to crime to Miles' dismay. But this second life wouldn't last long, as it seemed Aaron died in Miles Morales issue 21. Later it was discovered in 35 by Miles and one of his clones, Shift, that Davis was alive, but in a different dimension. In Miles Morales Spider-Man 41, he and Miles faced Selim, Miles' evil clone. After they defeated him, uncle and nephew returned home to Earth 616. Okay, let's see if we can get caught up with what Miles Morales has been up to. I haven't really checked out his main series in quite a long time here. Originally from Earth 1610, Miles has become a very capable Spider-Man. After adapting to a new universe, he traveled to the Spider-Verse, fought a version of the Sinister Six, was an Avenger for a time and then left, and became a champion and dealt with his own clone saga. Oh, and he's best buds with Spider-Man. Current status, fighting vampires in Brooklyn with Blade and Blade's daughter Bloodline. There you go. That was the Amazing Spider-Man's kind of crime lord families here. I thought it was particularly interesting to put the spotlight over on characters like Robbie Randy Robertson, the Lincoln characters of Tombstone and Beetle, as well as checking in with the extended Fisk family with people like Typhoid Mary and the Rose. Of course, these are not all of the antagonists and the villains in Gang War. There's so many others like Diamondback, who we mentioned earlier, over in Spider-Woman's main series. All right, let's see if we have anything else to go ahead and cover today. Let's see if we got all the breaking news out of the way as well. Give me one moment here. Okay. So we're going to close out our stream today with this super fun article from Adventures in Poor Taste. Let's check this one out right now. We're actually going to go ahead and take the 2023 X-Men Monday survey live on stream here. Don't miss your chance to participate in the 2023 X-Men Monday survey. This one from Chris Hassan over at Adventures in Poor Taste. From Sins of Sinister to the Fall of X, it's been quite a year for the X-Men. Before we ring in 2024, we'll see the end of the Krakoan Age and the launch of the next Great X era. We need to reflect on the year that was. That's where the 2023 X-Men Monday survey comes in. Complete the survey below and the answers will help inform our annual end-of-year chat with X-Men senior editor Jordan D. White. Okay, let's go ahead and check this one out right now. First of all, they're asking for the email. We're not going to fill that one out, but we are going to say what our favorite X ongoing series is in 2023. Let's see who the contenders are. We have Deadpool, Immortal X-Men, Invincible Iron Man, Legion of X, Marauders Wolverine, X-Force, X-Men, X-Men Red, and X-Men Unlimited. Wow, there's so many different ongoing series spread out across all these different X-Men lines. For me, I'd have to say that Immortal X-Men just continues to take the cake each and every month by how it introduces all these lingering plot threads. I would say my second pick, my runner-up, would definitely have to be X-Men Red. I love how ambitious X-Men Red is with taking all these like disparate characters over on Arakko and fleshing them out. My number 3 pick would probably be the main X-Men series. It's really fun to see each month how Jerry Duggan refreshes some of the story scenarios over in his main book. Favorite X miniseries of 2023? Wow, this is quite the list here. We have Alpha Flight, Astonishing X-Men, Betsy Braddock, Captain Britain, Bishop War College, Children of the Vault, Dark Web X-Men, Dark X-Men, Immoral X-Men, Jean Grey, Magneto, Miss Marvel, The New Mutant Lethal Legions, Nightcrawlers, Realm of X, Rogue and Gambit, Sabretooth and the Exiles, Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants, Uncanny Avengers, Uncanny Spider-Man, Days of Future Past, Exterminators, Extreme X-Men. I'm digging through all of these individual issues, and what I can definitely say here is that Dark X-Men, for me, is a lot stronger than the rest of these books, just in terms of how expansive it feels like the Limbo Embassy and all the X-Men that are operating over with Madeline Pryor are in the main book. Let's see if we have a runner-up choice. I've also been a pretty huge fan of Uncanny Spider-Man each and every month. I feel like Cy Spurrier does a wonderful job mixing up these story scenarios in that book and finding interesting ways to utilize the relationship over between Silver Sable and Nightcrawler. I love Realm of X, but I don't think it's one of the strongest miniseries out of the Fall of X line, but I do think it's been pretty phenomenal. Uncanny Avengers, I think, opens strong. Not each and every issue of Uncanny Avengers has advanced the storyline, but I love the aesthetic, I love the tone of the book, and also the way that Jerry Duggan just writes really fun dialogue for all the characters. Betsy Braddock, Captain Britain, had a really great supporting cast and managed it really, really well. It felt like that book had way more to say in terms of what it was setting up for Betsy. And frankly, I can't wait to see her come back to the main Marvel universe. I've had a massive problem with how Jean Grey's like dialogue and story scenarios have been structured. I don't like the scripts over for that series particularly well, and I hope that in whatever like Louise Simonson's next project is with Marvel, it's going to be a little bit more focused. Immoral X-Men was a lot of fun. Nightcrawlers was a lot of fun. Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants was really, really engaging. I almost feel like the Sins of Sinister books, though, need to be appreciated together. To me, it feels like if you take them apart in like these kind of disparate ways, that they don't have that same lasting sense of impact. But yeah, I feel like across these X-Men titles, for me, It just felt like Dark X-Men took on the most ambition, had the most interesting sense of plotting as well. Favorite X character of 2023? Jesus. This one is going to be challenging. Apocalypse. Probably not Apocalypse, but he's been used really well this year across the X-Men books. Archangel, really cool introduction for him. Escani was pretty great in the Betsy Braddock book. Oh god, Beast. Beast might be our pick for the best X-Men character of 2023. Watching his bad decisions like compound on each other from issue after issue after issue was so cool. Bishop has really been tearing it up over in Children of the Vault. Boom Boom. I really don't know what Boom Boom has been up to this year. Cable had a really cool moment in X-Men where he tried to stop Fall of X before it happened, unsuccessfully, of course. Cannonball. I don't know where Cannonball's been this year. It's been really cool to watch Captain America become an ally of the Avengers on books like Uncanny Avengers, but I don't know if he's my X-Men character of the entire year. Captain Britain. I feel like Captain Britain definitely got the short end of the stick this year in all these different X-Men titles. Professor Xavier has had a really cool storyline over in Immortal X-Men right now. It feels like that book is almost centered around him as a character. Right next to Beast, I would probably name him as my X-Men character of the year. Colossus has also had a great storyline as he's been manipulated over by his brother Mikhail Rasputin in the pages of X-Force and has featured just such a chilling confrontation with these heroes. Cyclops, of course, has been captured over from Orcus. Cypher, I cannot tell you where Cypher's been. Danny Moonstar was with the rest of the heroes over in Realm of X. Dazzler. Destiny. Over with X-Men Blue Origins, I think Destiny's profile has been raised across the Marvel Universe. I love how she's been like this breakout character amidst the Krakoan line of books. And I'm hoping that X-Men Blue Origins issue will kind of cement her status a little more. Wow, Domino. Dr. Stasis has been a wonderful X-Men character this year. That's been characterized in so much depth across all like the different X-Men one-shots and whatnot. Emma Frost has been so fantastic with the Underground X-Men, as well as being a supporting player in the main Iron Man book. There's been a really, really interesting plot thread with Exodus, where he's kind of stranded over in the White Hot Room. Firestar also has been undercover at Orcus. There's been just wonderful, really, really interesting plot threads with her in the main X-Men book. Mike Ray, welcome to the stream. I found your channel during Sins of Sinister because you were like the only person covering it. That is so cool. I'm so glad to hear that was actually your introduction over to us. That crossover was so good. I am so disturbed that not everybody actually talked about it. I even have like a Sins of Sinister box right over there. That was one of the best plot threads across like the entire Krakoan era. And I feel like the way that Immortal X-Men has ventured back into Sins of Sinister has made that book evoke this really like harrowing sense of horror, like specifically psychological horror that almost like has me scared to check out the next issue. I love just how creeped out Immortal X-Men makes me feel right now. Forge, I can't tell you where he's been recently. Who else do we have? Frenzy, Gambit. Gambit has had some good moments in Dark X-Men, helping the character of Faint. There's Genesis. Havoc. Havoc has had just a great glow up during Dark X-Men, working alongside Madeline. It felt like Havoc really got his profile knocked down a few pegs over in Dark Web. So seeing him, kind of operate like more in a domestic setting with Maddie, I think has also been really intriguing. Hope has a really cool relationship dynamic with Exodus right now in terms of the main Immortal X-Men book. And I think it's really cool how Kieran Gillen has like continued to explore their relationship in like scenario and different context within Sins of Sinister and like all these like separate books. All right, we have Iceman. Man, Bobby Drake has had a fantastic year too. Watching his main series and seeing him operate alongside the Inhuman of Romeo has really led me to come a lot more invested in his character. Jean Grey is going through something very interesting in the pages of her main series. We've seen Jean Grey in the White Hot Room over in countless titles of Immortal X-Men, and also we've gotten these like what if scenarios over in her main book. Maybe Jubilee is going to be on this list next year over in Dead X-Men. Juggernaut had some really strong story scenarios over in the main X-Men series 2, operating alongside Firestar. Madison Jeffries. Maggot has been in a couple disparate issues of Dark X-Men. Magic this year was in Realm of X with people like Typhoid Mary. Mr. Sinister, I think, also had a very, very strong, very fantastic breakout year over across the Marvel X-Men books. Moira McTaggart also dealt a really strong blow against the X-Men during the Hellfire Gala. Monet. Oh, goodness. Monet, right now, Monet is in Uncanny Avengers. And she may be even interested in exploring a relationship with Quicksilver. We'll see how that one fleshes out. Mystique. We just got some really strong Mystique content over in X-Men Blue Origins. This was teased in the main Uncanny Spider-Man book as Nightcrawler continually tried to reach out to Mystique, who just shot him down time and time again. Nanny. I'm not sure where Nanny left off over at Marvel. Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler's had a fantastic year. I wouldn't hesitate putting Nightcrawler first in this entire list. Uncanny Spider-Man has been tremendous. Watching Kurt kind of like, fall over from Krakoa and go on his own path, I think has been really, really interesting too. It's been really cool to see Nimrod's presence get bolstered in like all these recent X-Men books. I feel like we even got a glimpse over a Nimrod during Uncanny Spider-Man 2. Omega Sentinel, that's been also another fantastic breakout character in the Miss Marvel, the New Mutant comic book series. And also, Kamala had like a direct confrontation with her over in the last issue of that book too. Orphan Maker, no idea where Orphan Maker is, or Oya, or Polaris for that matter. Quicksilver, we already mentioned, is working over in Uncanny Avengers with Psylocke as well, and Rogue. We've already explored how Bobby Drake is working with the Inhuman of Romeo in his main series. There's Sabretooth, Sage. Shadowcat would also be really, really high on my list over in this article. I think Shadowcat has had a lot of really strong characterization during Fall of X. I've also loved tremendously some of the interactions that Kitty Pryde Shadowcat has had over with Kamala Khan in Miss Marvel The New Mutant 2. Talon has been a strong breakout character in the Underground X-Men. Sebastian Shaw is headed back into the Hellfire Gala, or the Hellfire Club, alongside Selene in Immortal X-Men. Storm has been fighting this massive Genesis war over on Arakko and X-Men Red. Sunspot, Sync, Vulcan, and then we have Wolverine 2. Breakout X character of 2023, Escapade Iron Man, John Ironfire. Oh, I really like John Ironfire over in X-Men Red. I especially loved how they used John Ironfire during Sins of Sinister. I feel like that is a really strong pick over for the Breakout X character. If not John Ironfire, then I would definitely have to do either Madeline Pryor or Mother Righteous. Even Rasputin 4. I feel like there's been a lot of really interesting X-Men characters the past few months. Kingpin has had a really interesting working relationship with Iron Man and Emma Frost. Frankly, I would maybe even put Emma Frost over on the list of the breakout X character of 2023. I think Jerry Duggan has done a really phenomenal job naturally implementing these X-Men plot threads into the main Iron Man comic without making it feel forced or rushed. All right, so it looks like this is the last one to vote on here. Favorite X couple of 2023? Captain Britain and Ascani. That's a pretty strong couple here. Cerebella and Escapade. Emma Frost and Tony Stark. That's been a pretty marquee couple in terms of the Fall of X. Out of everybody on this list, though, I'd have to say one of the most exciting new relationships that we've already hinted at is Silver Sable and Nightcrawler and Uncanny Spider-Man. Their relationship has gone through so much turmoil. It's been really interesting to see Talon and Sync get closer to each other. Storm and NASA Craig. That was kind of a fun throwaway, meeting in one issue of X-Men Red 2. Rogue and Gambit haven't really done that much this year. I would definitely leave them off this list. Monet and Quicksilver's relationship is starting to bud over in Uncanny Avengers. Madeline Pryor and Havoc, they're in an interesting place because it feels like Madeline Pryor's reputation has been redeemed a little bit, and now Havoc is kind of naturally trying to fit into more of a domestic setting with her, which of course has now been shattered by the last issue of Dark X-Men and the inclusion of Orcus. Jean Grey and Cyclops, both are going through it this year in terms of their Fall of X status quos. They're such big key players in terms of the X-Men. We talked about Iceman and Romeo, another fantastic couple here too. If I had to choose one couple over on the list, probably have to give it over to Destiny and Mystique, especially in the wake of the X-Men Blue origin story. I think that was really, really phenomenal. Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much for checking out our stream today. I hope you enjoyed our deep dives into all this different X-Men material. I had a blast covering it with you today, and to get caught up in terms of some of these streams. We're going to be back tomorrow. We actually still have quite a lot of different news to cover. In fact, let's even see what we have in store for tomorrow. We're going to be talking a lot about Jonathan Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man. We're going to be talking about Greg Weisman's Spider-Man. Also, we have a little bit more to say about the resurrection of Magneto. And maybe even some new free comic book day stuff. All right, well, thank you so much for coming to check out our stream today. We'll be back tomorrow, hopefully a little bit earlier, to talk about all these different books and to explore Spider-Man in like 10 to 15 different settings. Thank you so much for coming to check out our stream today, and we'll be back to see what's next for the Marvel and DC comic book universes tomorrow. Thanks so much.